Why you must read. Beginner level. Reading is one of the best things you can do if you want to improve your English. Many students ask me the same question. They say, "Teacher, what is the fastest way to learn English?" Some people think the answer is grammar. Some people think it is speaking. Some people think it is watching movies. All these things are useful. But if I can give only one piece of advice, I always say the same thing. Read every day. Read easy English. Read for fun. Read because you enjoy it. This simple habit can change your English little by little. One day you will look back and say, "Wow, my English is much better now." The best part is that reading does not feel like hard work when you choose something you enjoy. I remember one of my students many years ago. His name was Sam. Sam wanted to speak English very well. Every day he studied grammar for 2 hours. He wrote many notes. He learned many rules. But when he tried to speak, he stopped every few seconds. He was always thinking. He was always worried about mistakes. Then I gave him a very simple job. I said, "Stop studying grammar for 1 hour every day. Use that hour to read easy English stories." Sam was surprised. He thought I was joking. He believed grammar was everything. Still, he trusted me. He started reading every evening before he went to bed. At first, he could read only a few pages. Sometimes he did not understand every word. But he kept reading. After a few months, something amazing happened. His speaking became smoother. He knew more words. He understood more English. He smiled more because English did not feel scary anymore. Reading changed him. Many students think reading means reading difficult books. That is not true. In fact, difficult books can slow you down. Imagine you are riding a bicycle. If the road is too full of big rocks, you cannot ride smoothly. You stop again and again. Reading works the same way. If every sentence has many new words, your brain becomes tired. You stop every minute. You open the dictionary again and again. Soon you feel bored. You close the book. That is not the kind of reading you need. Instead, choose books that are easy for you. Choose stories where you understand most of the words. Maybe you know 95 words out of 100. That is wonderful. Your brain can enjoy the story. At the same time, it quietly learns the few new words. Learning becomes natural. It feels almost like magic. You are learning, but you do not always notice it. Let me tell you a funny story. Imagine I give you this sentence. The happy dog runs after the small ball. You understand it easily. Now imagine I change some words. The happy dog runs after the flibble snarp. What is a flibble? What is a snarp? You have never heard these words before, but you probably think the dog is running after some kind of object. Maybe it is a toy. Maybe it is a ball. You can guess because you understand the rest of the sentence. Your brain is very smart. It uses the words around the new word to find the meaning. This is how reading helps you learn vocabulary. You do not always need a dictionary. Your brain likes to solve small puzzles. Now imagine something very different. Flibble snarp, crindle, mopa drintle. You probably understand nothing. There are too many strange words. Your brain cannot guess the meaning. This is why easy reading is so important. You need enough easy words around the new word. Then your brain has clues. A clue is something that helps you find the answer. Reading gives your brain these clues every day. Scientists have studied reading for many years. They found something interesting. The brain becomes stronger when it sees words many times. One time is usually not enough. 10 times may not be enough. But when you meet the same word again and again in different stories, your brain starts to remember it. You do not force yourself to remember. It happens naturally. This is one reason why children become good readers. They see common words many times. Adults can learn the same way. Think about the word window. You may read it in one story about a house. Then you see it again in a story about a school. Later, you read about someone looking out of a train window. Every time you meet the word, it becomes a little stronger in your memory. One day you hear someone say, "Please open the window." You understand immediately. You do not stop to think. The word has become part of your English. Reading also teaches you grammar without long grammar lessons. This surprises many students. They think grammar only comes from grammar books. But grammar is really a pattern. A pattern is something that happens again and again. When you read many sentences, your brain starts to notice these patterns. You read, "She goes to school." Then later you read, "He goes to work." Then, "My friend goes home." After seeing this pattern many times, your brain starts to understand it. You may not even know the grammar rule, but you know what sounds right. This is how children learn their first language. They do not study grammar books when they are 2 years old. They listen. They read simple books later. They hear the same patterns many times. Slowly, they begin to use them. We can learn a second language in a similar way. Of course, grammar books are useful. But reading gives life to grammar. It shows grammar in real sentences. Reading helps your writing too. If you want to become a better writer, you must first become a better reader. Every book teaches you something. Maybe it teaches you how to start a story. Maybe it teaches you how to describe a person. Maybe it teaches you how to end a story. Little by little, these ideas become part of your own writing. I often tell my students to imagine cooking. If you want to cook delicious food, you need good ingredients. Words are like ingredients. Sentences are like recipes. Reading fills your kitchen with many wonderful ingredients. Then, when you want to write or speak, you already have many words ready to use. Another wonderful thing about reading is confidence. Many English learners feel nervous. They think their English is bad. They compare themselves with other people. They worry about every mistake. Reading changes this feeling. Every page you finish tells your brain something important. It says, I can do this. Every chapter gives you a small success. Small successes become big confidence. I remember another student named Maria. She always said, "Teacher, I am too slow." She believed everyone else was smarter than her. I asked her to read only 10 minutes every day, not 1 hour, not 2 hours, only 10 minutes. She laughed because it sounded too easy. After 6 months, she came back with a big smile. She had finished several easy books. She said, "Now I believe I can learn English." Her English was better, but something even more important had changed. She believed in herself. Many people think they do not have enough time to read. Let us think about that for a moment. Do you watch videos every day? Do you look at your phone many times? Do you wait for the bus? Do you sit in a waiting room? These small moments are perfect for reading. You do not need a whole afternoon. Even 10 or 15 minutes every day can make a big difference over 1 year. Imagine putting one small coin into a jar every day. One coin does not look important, but after 1 year, the jar is full. Reading works the same way. 1 page today, 2 pages tomorrow, 3 pages next week. Slowly your English grows. Growth is often quiet. You may not notice it every day. But after many months, the change is easy to see. Some students worry because they read slowly. Please do not worry. Slow reading is still reading. A small tree does not become tall in one night. It grows a little every day. Your English grows the same way. The important thing is not speed. The important thing is that you keep reading. Choose books that make you smile. Choose stories about things you enjoy. If you like animals, read about animals. If you like adventure, read adventure stories. If you like love stories, read love stories. Interest is important. When you enjoy the story, you forget that you are studying. Learning becomes fun. Sometimes you will find a difficult word. Do not stop every time. First, try to guess the meaning. Read the next sentence. Read the sentence before it. Often the story gives you enough information. If the word is very important and you still do not understand, then check the dictionary. But do not let the dictionary stop the story every minute. Another good idea is to read the same book more than once. Many students think this is strange. They say, "I already know the story." Exactly. Because you know the story, your brain can pay more attention to the English. The second time feels easier. The third time feels even easier. You notice new words and new grammar that you missed before. Reading aloud can also help. When you read aloud, your eyes, your mouth, and your ears work together. You see the words, you say the words, you hear the words. This gives your brain more practice. You do not need to read every page aloud. Even 5 minutes is useful. Please remember one very important thing. Do not read because someone forces you. Read because you want to become a better version of yourself. Read because every page opens a new door. Read because every story teaches you something about people and about life. English is not only a school subject, it is a way to meet new ideas, new cultures, and new friends. Years ago, I loved reading one easy English story every night before bed. At first, I understood almost everything because the books were simple. After many weeks, I noticed something interesting. I was thinking in English more often. Small English sentences came into my mind without any effort. I did not plan this. It happened because my brain was full of English every day. That experience taught me an important lesson. Reading is not only about books. Reading changes the way you think. So, if you ask me again, what should I do to improve my English? My answer is still the same. Read every day. Read easy books. Read stories that make you happy. Read without fear. Read without trying to be perfect. Some days you will understand more. Some days you will understand less. That is normal. Keep turning the pages. Keep enjoying the journey. One page becomes one chapter. One chapter becomes one book. One book becomes many books. Many books become better vocabulary. Better vocabulary becomes better speaking. Better speaking becomes more confidence. More confidence opens new opportunities in your life. Your future English is waiting for you. It begins with the next page you read. So open a book today. Read a little. Smile a little. Learn a little. Tomorrow, do it again. One day, you will be surprised by how far you have come. And when that day arrives, you will understand something very important. Reading did not only improve your English. Reading changed your life. Transition and Vocabulary Guide. I hope you enjoyed the beginner level version. Now I'll just explain some words that are in the intermediate level text. When you move from beginner English to intermediate English, you start to see longer sentences and more interesting words. At first, these words may look difficult, but don't worry. You do not need to learn hundreds of new words at one time. It is much better to learn a few useful words and see them again and again in different situations. That is exactly what we are going to do now. In the next part of this lesson, you will read the same ideas again. However, the English will be a little more advanced. You will see these words naturally inside the story. Because you already know their meanings, you will understand the text much more easily. Let's learn them together. 1. Habit a habit is something you do again and again until it becomes a normal part of your life. You do not have to think very hard about it because you are used to doing it. For example, if you brush your teeth every morning, that is a habit. If you drink a cup of tea every evening, that is also a habit. Reading can become a habit too. At first, you may have to remind yourself to read every day. But after a few weeks, opening a book will feel natural. Example: reading for 20 minutes before bed became my favorite habit. When people build good habits, they usually make progress without noticing every small step. That is why habits are so powerful. 2. Gradually means something happens little by little. It does not happen all at once. It takes time. Imagine the sun rising in the morning. The sky does not become bright in 1 second. It slowly becomes lighter. That is gradual change. Learning English works the same way. You do not wake up one morning speaking perfect English. Instead, your vocabulary grows gradually. Your confidence grows gradually. Your speaking becomes smoother gradually. Sometimes students become impatient because they cannot see quick results. But real learning almost always happens gradually. Example: as I kept reading every day, my English gradually became stronger. Whenever you hear this word, think about slow but steady improvement. 3. Absorb. The word absorb has a very interesting meaning. Imagine putting a dry sponge into water. The sponge slowly takes in the water. We say the sponge absorbs the water. Your brain can absorb information in a similar way. When you read many English stories, your brain quietly absorbs new words, grammar, and sentence patterns. You are learning even when you are not trying to memorize everything. That is one reason reading is so effective. You absorb English naturally. Example: children absorb new languages very quickly when they hear them every day. You do not always feel this happening, but your brain is working behind the scenes. 4. Context. Context means the words, sentences, or situation around something that help you understand its meaning. Let's imagine you read this sentence. Emma picked up her umbrella because dark clouds were covering the sky. Even if you do not know the word umbrella, you can probably guess it is something people use when it rains. Why? Because of the context. The other words give you clues. Reading gives you lots of context. Instead of learning one word by itself, you learn it inside a real sentence with real meaning. Example: I didn't know the new word, but the context helped me understand it. Good readers often guess correctly because they pay attention to the context. 5. Confidence. You probably already know this word a little, but it is one of the most important words in language learning. Confidence means believing that you can do something. Confidence does not mean you are perfect. Confidence does not mean you never make mistakes. It simply means you believe you can keep trying. Think about riding a bicycle. The first time may feel scary. After many days of practice, you become more confident. You still make small mistakes, but you are not afraid anymore. English works exactly the same way. Example: reading easy books gave me the confidence to speak English with other people. Confidence grows through action, not through waiting. 6. Reinforce. The word reinforce means to make something stronger. Imagine building a small wooden bridge. If you add extra pieces of wood underneath it, the bridge becomes stronger. You have reinforced it. Learning works like this too. Every time you read the same grammar pattern again, you reinforce it. Every time you meet a vocabulary word again, you reinforce your memory. This is why reading many books is so useful. Every new story reinforces what you already know. Example: reading every day reinforced the grammar patterns I had already learned. The more often you see something, the stronger it becomes in your memory. 7. Perspective. A perspective is the way someone sees or thinks about something. Two people can look at the same situation but have different perspectives. Imagine two children walking in the rain. One child says, "This weather is terrible." The other child says, "This is fun. Let's jump in the puddles." The weather is the same. The perspectives are different. Books are wonderful because they let us see life through other people's perspectives. We learn how different people think, feel, and solve problems. Reading does not only improve English, it also helps us understand people better. Example: reading stories from different countries gave me a new perspective on the world. That is one reason reading is so valuable. 8. Opportunity. An opportunity is a good chance to do something. Imagine your friend tells you about a new job. You can apply for it. That job is an opportunity. Maybe your school starts an English club. That is an opportunity to practice speaking. Learning English creates many opportunities. It can help you study in another country. It can help you meet new friends. It can help you travel. It can help you find better work. The more your English improves, the more opportunities may appear in your life. Example: learning English opened many new opportunities for my future. Opportunities often begin with small daily actions. 9. Transform. The last word is transform. To transform means to change something completely into something better or very different. Imagine a tiny seed. After many months, it becomes a beautiful tree. That is a transformation. Or think about a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. That is one of the most famous transformations in nature. Reading can transform your English in the same way. At first, you know only a few words. Then you understand simple stories. Later, you enjoy novels. Eventually, you speak with confidence. The change is slow, but when you look back, it feels amazing. Example: daily reading transformed the way I learned English. This is my favorite word in today's lesson because reading does not simply improve your English a little. It can transform the way you think, learn, and communicate. Now you know these 9 important words: habit, gradually, absorb, context, confidence, reinforce, perspective, opportunity, transform. As you read the intermediate level version, try to notice these words each time they appear. Don't stop every time you see one. Simply continue reading and let the story help you remember them. That is one of the best ways to learn vocabulary. You may not remember every word perfectly after one reading, and that is completely normal. Real learning happens through repetition. Every time you meet these words again, your understanding becomes a little stronger. Soon, they will begin to feel natural, just like many simple English words already do. So, relax, enjoy the next part, and let your brain absorb the language. Read with curiosity, read with confidence, and most importantly, keep reading. Because every page reinforces what you already know and gradually transforms you into a stronger English learner. Why you must read. Intermediate level. Reading is one of the most powerful habits you can develop if your goal is to become fluent in English. Students often ask me, "Teacher, what is the best way to improve quickly?" Some expect me to recommend complicated grammar books. Others believe that watching movies or memorizing long vocabulary lists is the secret. While all of these activities have value, my answer almost never changes. Read every single day. Read books that you enjoy. Read stories that make you curious. Most importantly, make reading a daily habit instead of something you do only when you feel motivated. Many people wait until they have enough free time before they start reading. Unfortunately, that perfect moment rarely arrives. Life is always busy. There is always another task to complete, another message to answer, or another video to watch. If you wait for perfect conditions, you may wait forever. Successful English learners understand something different. They do not depend on motivation alone. Instead, they build habits that become part of their everyday lives. Once reading becomes automatic, learning happens almost effortlessly. I remember teaching a student named Sam several years ago. He was one of the hardest working students I had ever met. Every evening, he spent 2 hours studying grammar rules. His notebook was full of colorful notes, examples, and exercises. On paper, he looked like an excellent learner. However, whenever we had a conversation, he struggled. Before speaking, he paused for several seconds because he was searching for the correct grammar rule in his mind. His English was accurate, but it was not natural. One day, I suggested something that surprised him. I asked him to spend one of those grammar hours reading simple English stories instead. At first, he looked doubtful. He believed that reducing grammar study would slow his progress. Nevertheless, he trusted the process and decided to try it for a few months. The beginning was not easy. He still encountered unfamiliar words, and occasionally he felt frustrated. However, because the books were written for learners, he understood most of the story. Instead of stopping every minute to use a dictionary, he simply continued reading. Little by little, his brain began to absorb the language naturally. Without realizing it, he was collecting vocabulary, grammar patterns, and common expressions every day. Several months later, I noticed a remarkable difference. His conversations flowed more smoothly. He hesitated less often. Instead of translating every sentence from his first language, he began producing English more naturally. He had not memorized thousands of new rules. Instead, his brain had gradually become familiar with English because he had spent so much time reading meaningful sentences. This experience reminded me of something many students forget. Learning a language is not only about collecting information. It is also about giving your brain enough opportunities to experience the language again and again. Reading provides those opportunities every single day. One common mistake is choosing books that are far too difficult. Many learners believe difficult books will help them improve faster. Surprisingly, the opposite is often true. Imagine riding a bicycle along a smooth road. You can move comfortably and enjoy the journey. Now imagine riding over large rocks, deep holes, and broken ground. Every few seconds you must stop, lose your balance, and begin again. Eventually you become exhausted. Reading works in exactly the same way. If every sentence contains several unfamiliar words, your attention disappears. Instead of following the story, you spend all your time searching for definitions. After a while, reading feels more like solving a difficult puzzle than enjoying a book. That is why I always encourage my students to choose material they can mostly understand. If you understand around 95% of the words, your brain has enough information to follow the story while still learning something new. Unknown vocabulary appears inside meaningful context, allowing you to guess its meaning without interrupting your reading every few minutes. Let me show you what I mean with a small experiment. Imagine you read this sentence. The cheerful little dog chased the bright red ball across the garden. Almost everyone understands this sentence immediately. Now change two words. The cheerful little dog chased the bright red flinder across the garden. You probably have never heard the word flinder. Even so, you can probably guess that it is some kind of object because of the surrounding context. Perhaps it is a toy. Perhaps it is a ball. The exact meaning is unclear, but the sentence still makes sense. Now imagine reading this instead. Flinder brascal drinto morpal cravish. Your brain suddenly has nothing to work with. Every important word is unfamiliar, so there are no clues. Guessing becomes impossible. This simple experiment demonstrates why context matters so much. Your brain enjoys solving small puzzles, but only when enough information is available. Reading easy books gives your brain exactly that balance. Researchers who study language learning have discovered something equally fascinating. Human memory becomes stronger through repeated exposure rather than single moments of study. Meeting a new word once rarely makes it permanent. Even seeing it 5 times may not be enough. However, if you continue encountering that same word in different books, different conversations, and different situations, your memory becomes stronger each time. This process helps reinforce everything you have already learned. Imagine reading the word window in a story about a family eating breakfast. Later, you find the same word in a detective novel. A few days afterward, it appears in a travel article about trains. Every new encounter reinforces your understanding until the word becomes completely natural. Eventually, when someone says, "Could you open the window?" your brain understands instantly without making any conscious effort. Grammar develops in a surprisingly similar way. Many students think grammar exists only inside textbooks filled with rules and exercises. While those books certainly have their place, grammar is really a collection of patterns that native speakers use naturally. When you repeatedly read sentences like, "She goes to school every morning," "He goes to work by bus," and "My brother goes home after dinner," your brain begins recognizing the pattern automatically. Even if you cannot explain the grammar rule perfectly, You develop an instinct for what sounds correct. This is exactly how children acquire their first language. They do not begin by memorizing complicated grammar explanations. Instead, they hear thousands of correct sentences. Over time, their brains absorb these patterns naturally through repetition. Adult learners can benefit from the same principle. Reading exposes you to thousands of examples of correct English. Every page quietly strengthens your understanding without requiring constant analysis. Another important benefit of reading is that it improves your writing. Every author teaches you something new. One writer demonstrates how to create suspense. Another shows you how to describe emotions. Someone else teaches you how to write clear dialogue. While you may not notice these lessons immediately, your brain stores them. Later, when you begin writing yourself, those ideas appear naturally. I like comparing this process to cooking. Imagine trying to prepare a delicious meal with only 3 ingredients. Your choices would be very limited. Now imagine walking into a kitchen filled with vegetables, spices, fresh bread, fruit, herbs, and hundreds of different ingredients. Suddenly you can prepare almost anything. Vocabulary works exactly the same way. The more words and sentence patterns you collect through reading, the richer your speaking and writing become. Reading fills your mental kitchen with everything you need to communicate clearly. Perhaps the greatest gift reading gives you, however, is confidence. Many English learners believe they are simply bad at languages. They compare themselves with classmates who seem to learn more quickly. Every mistake feels like proof that they will never become fluent. Reading slowly changes that perspective. Each completed page is a small success. Each completed chapter becomes another reason to believe in yourself. Over time, those small victories accumulate until your entire perspective begins to change. Instead of saying, "I can't learn English," you begin saying, "I'm improving every week." That change in thinking is incredibly powerful because confidence encourages consistency, and consistency leads to real progress. I once taught another student named Maria who constantly apologized for her English. Before answering even simple questions, she would say, "Sorry, my English is bad." Instead of giving her extra grammar homework, I challenged her to read just 10 minutes every evening. She laughed because the goal sounded almost too easy. Yet she accepted the challenge. For 6 months, she read easy graded readers before going to sleep. She didn't study every unknown word. She simply enjoyed the stories. When we met again, something remarkable had happened. Of course, her vocabulary had improved. Her pronunciation had become clearer. Her listening skills had developed. But the biggest transformation was invisible. She no longer apologized before speaking. She smiled. She volunteered answers. She trusted herself. Reading had done far more than improve her English. It had transformed the way she saw herself as a language learner. Maria's story reminds me of another lesson that every English learner should remember. Progress is rarely dramatic from one day to the next. Most of the time, it is almost invisible. You read a few pages today. You learn one new expression tomorrow. A week later, You recognize a sentence pattern that confused you before. None of these moments feels extraordinary. However, when they are combined over months and years, they create an impressive transformation. This gradual improvement is one reason many learners underestimate the power of reading. They expect instant results. After reading one book, they ask themselves, why am I not fluent yet? They forget that language learning is much like planting a tree. When you plant a seed, nothing seems to happen at first. The ground looks exactly the same. Yet beneath the surface, tiny roots are growing stronger every day. Eventually, a small green shoot appears. Then the tree continues to grow until one day it provides shade, flowers, and fruit. Your English develops in exactly the same way. Every page you read strengthens something inside your mind. Even when you cannot see the change immediately, your brain is working. It is organizing vocabulary. It is recognizing grammar patterns. It is connecting ideas together. Most importantly, it is becoming more comfortable with English. Many people believe they simply do not have enough time to read. I understand why they feel this way. Modern life is busy. There are jobs, school assignments, family responsibilities, and endless notifications on our phones. Nevertheless, when we honestly examine our daily routines, we often discover small pockets of free time. Perhaps you spend 15 minutes waiting for a bus. Perhaps you arrive early for an appointment. Perhaps you scroll through social media before going to sleep. These short moments may seem unimportant, but together they create valuable opportunities for reading. Instead of waiting for a free afternoon, use the small pieces of time that already exist. Imagine placing one coin into a glass jar every day. The first coin seems meaningless. The second coin changes almost nothing. Even after 1 week, the jar still looks nearly empty. However, if you continue adding one coin every single day for a year, the jar becomes surprisingly full. Reading follows exactly the same principle. 10 minutes may not seem important today. Neither does 15 minutes tomorrow. Yet after 12 months, you may have finished several books, learned hundreds of new words, and developed much greater confidence in your English. Small actions become powerful when they are repeated consistently. This is why building a reading habit matters far more than having occasional bursts of motivation. Another concern I hear from students is that they read too slowly. Please do not believe that slow reading means unsuccessful reading. Every experienced reader was once a beginner. Every fluent speaker once struggled with simple sentences. Every expert started by learning the basics. Speed develops naturally through practice. When you first learned to ride a bicycle, you probably moved very carefully. You paid attention to every movement because everything was new. After enough practice, balancing became automatic. You no longer thought about every small action. Reading develops in much the same way. At first, every sentence requires concentration. You pause frequently. You think about vocabulary. You sometimes reread a paragraph. That is perfectly normal. As your experience increases, your brain recognizes more words instantly. Sentences become easier to understand. Eventually, you stop focusing on individual words and begin enjoying entire ideas. That is when reading becomes truly enjoyable. Choosing the right books is equally important. Some learners force themselves to read topics that do not interest them because they believe those books are more educational. Unfortunately, boredom often destroys consistency. Instead, choose stories that genuinely capture your attention. If you enjoy mysteries, read mystery stories. If you enjoy adventure, read adventure novels. If you love history, find simple history books. If science fascinates you, read science articles written for learners. Interest keeps your curiosity alive, and curiosity encourages you to continue reading. When you become emotionally involved in a story, you naturally pay closer attention to the language. Occasionally, you will discover a word you do not know. Resist the temptation to stop immediately. Instead, ask yourself a few simple questions. Can I guess the meaning? What is happening in the story? What clues does the surrounding context provide? Very often, the author has already given you enough information to understand the general idea. Even if your guess is not perfect, you are training an important language skill. Only reach for the dictionary when the unknown word is essential to understanding the passage. Otherwise, keep reading. The story is more important than understanding every single word. One strategy that surprises many learners is rereading books. Students sometimes tell me, "I've already read that story. Why should I read it again?" My answer is simple. Because the second reading is completely different from the first. During your first reading, your attention is focused on understanding the story. During the second reading, the story is already familiar. Your brain is free to notice sentence structures, useful expressions, and vocabulary that you overlooked before. By the third reading, the language often feels comfortable and natural. Nothing has changed inside the book. The change has happened inside you. Reading aloud is another valuable technique. When you read silently, your eyes receive information. When you read aloud, three parts of your learning system begin working together. Your eyes see the words. Your mouth produces the sounds. Your ears hear the pronunciation. Because several senses are involved at the same time, many learners remember new language more effectively. You do not need to read an entire chapter aloud. Even 5 minutes each day can make a noticeable difference over time. There is another benefit of reading that is sometimes forgotten. Books do far more than teach vocabulary and grammar. They introduce us to different cultures, different personalities, and different ways of thinking. Every story allows you to experience life through someone else's eyes. You meet people from different countries. You understand challenges that you have never faced yourself. You discover dreams that are different from your own. As a result, reading broadens your perspective. It reminds us that the world is much larger than our own daily routines. This is one reason lifelong readers often become better communicators. They have encountered many different viewpoints through the books they have read. Years ago, I developed a simple routine that changed my own English learning journey. Every night before going to bed, I read one easy English story. Sometimes I read only 10 pages. Sometimes I read much more because I was enjoying the book. I never tried to memorize every word. I simply read. After several weeks, I noticed something interesting. English sentences began appearing naturally in my thoughts. Instead of translating everything into my first language, I found myself thinking directly in English. At first, these thoughts were short and simple. Later, they became longer and more detailed. Nothing magical had happened overnight. The change was the result of hundreds of small reading sessions that gradually trained my brain. That experience completely transformed the way I viewed language learning. I stopped asking, "How can I study harder?" Instead, I asked, "How can I spend more enjoyable time with English?" Reading became the answer. So, if someone asks me today for the single most valuable piece of advice I can offer, my answer remains exactly the same. Read every day. Read books that are slightly below your maximum level so that reading feels enjoyable instead of stressful. Read with curiosity instead of fear. Read because every page reinforces what you already know while introducing something new. Read because your vocabulary will expand naturally. Read because your grammar will become more accurate through repeated exposure. Read because your confidence will grow every time you finish another chapter. Read because every story gives you another opportunity to experience English as a living language instead of a school subject. Most importantly, read patiently. Do not expect perfection. Do not compare your journey with someone else's. Your progress belongs to you alone. Some days will feel easy. Other days will feel difficult. Both kinds of days are valuable because both are moving you forward. Always remember this simple chain. One page becomes one chapter. One chapter becomes one book. One book becomes many books. Many books create a richer vocabulary. A richer vocabulary leads to clearer speaking. Clearer speaking builds greater confidence. Greater confidence opens new opportunities. Those opportunities can change your education, your career, your friendships, and even the direction of your life. That is why reading is much more than a study technique. It is a lifelong companion. It teaches you language. It teaches you patience. It teaches you empathy. It teaches you discipline. Most importantly, it teaches you that extraordinary results are often created by ordinary actions repeated consistently. Your future English is waiting for you. It does not begin with a perfect grammar book. It does not begin with memorizing thousands of words in one weekend. It begins with the next page you decide to read. So open a book today. Read a little. Learn a little. Smile a little. Tomorrow, do the same thing again. Keep building the habit. Keep trusting the process. Keep believing in yourself. One day you will look back and realize that the person who once struggled to read a single page can now enjoy entire books with confidence. And when that day comes, you will understand a simple truth that every successful language learner eventually discovers. Reading did not simply improve your English. Reading transformed your life.